Hello everyone and welcome to Tableau Live and today's presentation. My name is Bryla and we are coming to you live from my man cave down in Australia. As you can see from this high definition video, I've been around for a while, almost 8 years working at Tableau here in Sydney and many more years in this industry. And after all this time and all the talk about data and analytics over many years, one thing still surprises me. And that is the fact that most organizations still fail to get more than 30% of their employees to actively engage with data. Now, it is true that intuition and experience are critical to running a successful business, but research shows us that adding data to this mix can transform your organization to continuously sense change and respond with agility. So in this talk, we'll explore not so much why data is important, but we'll take a more practical view on how to put in place programs to make sure that 70, 80, or 90% of your workforce use data every day. But being data-driven is a choice. It doesn't just happen by accident. So when we ask companies about becoming data-driven, the results were unanimous. As you can see from this chart, almost everyone is on board to the idea or wanting to aspire to be more data-driven. And I'm sure these conversations are happening at the highest levels in those organizations. Not quite sure about that 1.4% there. Maybe they didn't understand the question. But despite this overwhelming willingness to be more data-driven, there are still significant challenges preventing companies in achieving this goal. So again, we asked them, and they came back, and they all agree that technology, for one, is the least of a challenge here. Tech companies like Tableau keep innovating and solutions are becoming more powerful and easier to use. But as you can see from this chart, the challenge is people. After all, we are creatures of habit. We see change as a disruption to our routine, and too often we just want to stay in our comfort zone. Now, many of you know our mission at Tableau is to help people see and understand data. So our focus is on empowering more people to use data every day. I mentioned earlier that as humans, we are creatures of habit. So just like exercise is a habit we had to develop, the first step on this journey would be to create a new habit, a data habit. And we can do that by introducing new ways to consume data and new and more natural ways to interact with data. We will see many examples of this throughout this presentation. Now, once data becomes a habit, we will then need to make it really easy for those new users to ask their first new question. We want them to be great at working with data and asking new questions, not just great at working with dashboards. But if we want them to be curious and to explore the data more freely, we need to make it available in a more intuitive way, using things like natural language interfaces and augmented analytics. And if we can make data a habit and allow users to ask deeper questions, we hope they'll fall in love with data and become part of our community of data rockstars. So today I'm going to focus on making data a habit. As part of that, I want to discuss some ideas to help you roll out your next analytics solution, one that will help you reach more people with data than ever before. So next, I want to walk through 4 simple questions that you should consider asking when rolling out a new data initiative. So let's start with question number 1. Who are your users? Now, this one sounds really obvious, but from my experience, often ignored. We need to know who your users are so that we can engage them at the level that they expect. And we can break this down into 3 groups that we could target. The first one is the analysts. This group is already familiar with data, and they find it natural to experiment, explore their own data sets. They are primarily looking for flexibility. They don't want to be constrained by the tools, as they are constantly asking new questions and interpreting and sharing their findings. So this is an easy group to target. A more challenging one are the operational teams. because for them, we need to create additional tailored views that are more prescriptive, that present less information at a time and make it more relevant to their specific context. Their primary job is not to analyze data, but to quickly understand and act on it. This should be presented to them in a dashboard that is very specific to their role. And finally, we have the information-hungry executive teams. And in order to reach executives, we might need to incorporate more data storytelling into our approach. The challenge here is to present complex ideas and insights in easy-to-understand ways. We can achieve this by presenting data alongside some sort of commentary that highlights key findings, rather than leaving them to self-serve the important insights. So let's look at some examples. We could use infographics as a data visualization technique. We are able to present data to the executives in a rich and easy-to-understand ways. So here's an example of a dynamic infographic which illustrates the plight of displaced persons and refugee migrations. Now, the infographic highlights a couple of key findings. First, it shows the relative number of asylum seekers in Western Europe compared to other countries. Second, it shows which countries have the greatest needs of support by correlating national income to the number of displaced refugees. These are complex issues, where the numbers alone don't tell the whole story. So what is needed is additional narrative to create a more complete view and understanding of the situation. This way of presenting data is very useful, but it tends to have a rather short lifespan, as it's based on point-in-time snapshot. So many users will accept the findings highlighted here, and very few will experiment with filters that are also provided there. So this is a good starting point, but if people want to continue the exploration, we need to give them a more analytical view. So with this view, users are more likely to drill into the 300 or so world development indicators available in the dropdown, and as a result, discover many different correlations. Users are also much more likely to bookmark this as a standalone tool, which they can then come back to later. This is very different behavior to when we use infographics. The key idea here is that it takes very little effort to create these additional views on the same data. And as a result of this, this will give your data the extended longevity and enable you to reach a much wider audience. So looking at question number 2. This one deals with knowing where your users are and how they consume and interact with data. I think we can break this one down again into 3 scenarios. So the first one is probably the obvious place, and that's the desktop or the browser. This is the traditional place where most of the data analytics applications were created or still created today and consumed. And this is still the key platform for delivery of rich data content. But we must not forget that for many users, this is not where they would like to consume their content. To satisfy the ever-growing number of users that are consuming data and analytics on the road or away from the desk, we need to have a mobile strategy in place. This does not simply mean that we cram complex data visualizations into a smaller screen, but it should be an opportunity to reimagine what it means to consume data content on a device in your pocket. So think Angry Birds for your business applications. Now, I think this might give my age away here, because are Angry Birds still a thing today? Not quite sure. I might need to do a little bit more research. And finally, the place where many users spend majority of their time, and again, it's one of those places maybe forgotten or ignored by analytics. And that is the key business application, like CRM, ERP, HR systems. So by embedding Tableau and analytics in the place where users are already working, and by pushing those insights into their workflow, they will start using data without having to change how they work. So to illustrate this thought process, let's run through a few examples. So consider an example where I am a real estate agency. As part of my service, I would like to use data to help my customers select areas around London based on their requirements, of course. So I created an analytical application in Tableau. My customers can choose the criteria that they are looking for. And once they've done that, they can explore areas around London. They can see where people are raising families or where there are a lot of properties that are owner-occupied. They can also drill into specific areas. They can then use that selection to find familiar communities around the London area again. I think this is a great application, but despite its usefulness, very few people used it beyond just a novelty factor. So I was wondering, why is that so? It's obvious, really. Being mobile is at the core of searching for a new house. So the application needs to be where the users are. And we need to optimize. So we had to optimize this application for a mobile experience. Now, this does not just mean the application is available where you are. I mean, that's kind of given. But it's also allowing us to enrich the user experience by taking advantage of some of the features that are only available on a mobile device. So features such as automatic location data, driving directions, and estimated time of arrival. And now we can take this even further by embedding these views inside, say, a CRM application. So here we can track opportunities, which is what CRMs are built to do, but we can also view the property search history. And this additional information can help us better understand their needs and result in us sending them a more relevant offers. So meeting users where they are involves thinking through that whole process and then creating multiple experiences for applications based on exactly the same data. So let's move on to the next question that we want to answer, and it is to understand how users engage with data. So we already know who they are and where they're using our applications. Now we need to know how they use them. Now, there are a number of engagement mechanisms built into Tableau, but they may require a little bit of training to get users to make the most of them. So they're a little bit hard to find at times. So firstly, users can leverage the collaboration mechanisms like comments and sharing. So you can see the comments on the right-hand side of the screen here. So they can use the comments feature to engage with other users. This is a place to ask for help or clarification about this particular view. And it's also a great forum to actively invite members to contribute their ideas and continue further data exploration. Another way for users to engage with data is with data-driven alerts and metrics. Now, this way users don't have to search or look for data updates because data will be pushed to them, keeping them informed about the numbers they really care about. And finally, think about content discovery as a way to engage your users. As the volume of available content increases, we need to surface the most important and most relevant content to the right users at the right time. Tableau's built-in recommendations feature helps users find new content. These suggestions could be based on usage numbers or whatever is currently trending across the company. Now, recommendations will help users to break out of their own analytical silos and find additional content and insights. So let's see some examples of this in action. In this example, I want to focus on metrics because I think these have huge impact. They can take people from using data once a week to using data several times an hour. It is really important that people can create their own metrics and not rely on others to do it for them. And that is the key here, because as much as you are interested in the whole of the company performance, you deeply care about updates related to your own personal area of responsibility. So if I have a dashboard that looks at insurance fraud, but all I care about is vehicle insurance in Scotland, then I need to build a metric for just that specific focus. We can easily create a personalized metric called vehicle insurance fraud in Scotland, and then once we have it, we can drop it into our favorites and rearrange it to sit alongside all the other different data assets that we care about. And then Tableau will automatically push those updates to your mobile device, where you can see the latest figures right from the home screen. You can also drill into each one of those metrics to see trends and time-based comparisons. So that's what it feels like to have data pushed to your device and available in format where you can use it at a glance. So up to this point, we focused on making data a habit. But like with any habit, we don't want it to be a dead end. We wanted to improve on it. We want to develop it further. Which brings me to the final area we need to address, one that deals with users' ability to go beyond the dashboard. So let's switch gears and look at ways that we can encourage users to ask their first new question. We don't want the dashboard to be the end of the conversation. In fact, we want it to be the beginning of one. Dashboard should be the place where new questions are born, and users should be able to find answers to those questions. So here are some ideas to help us avoid this kind of analytical dead ends. The first one relates to data. I think we need to avoid creating over-aggregated and too simplified or specialized data sources, as this dramatically limits the questions that users can ask of their data. Now, every organization out there has tens, if not hundreds, of business applications, in addition to, of course, many internal and external data sources. We need to break down those data silos and allow users to join and work with data from many of those sources. This opens doors for more complex questions, and that's where the real magic happens. Insights are seldom found in data from a single domain. And finally, we need to lower the barrier to entry and provide users with intuitive self-service analytics experience. So in the nutshell, we want to turn passive data consumers into active data explorers. And here at Tableau, we have thought a lot about breaking down these barriers. And we think a typical journey might look something like this. So we know that natural language is the simplest way for new users to ask the first question. The Ask Data feature in Tableau allows users to ask a number of throwaway questions to quickly profile the data and surface those initial insights. That first step might give us all the answers we need, but if it doesn't, we need more analytical depth to be able to explore more dimensions, more measures, and ask deeper questions. And we can do this by simply saving the output from our Ask Data session. And once we have that done, we can transition into Web Edit and use Tableau's amazing drag and drop and visual analytics capabilities. And finally, if need be, we can use Explain Data feature. With this capability, we can augment our analytics with the power of advanced statistical models, which can quickly uncover the hidden drivers in our data without writing any Python or R code. But for this to work effectively, we need to think carefully about how we prepare our data for analysis so that we don't create more analytical dead ends. And so for my final example, I would like us to go back to our view of London. So we started off by looking at this property application that lets people quickly understand the profiles and prices of areas around London. Now, what if we had a second application that also looked at London, but from a perspective of crime? In the past, we had no choice when we built these two applications, but to create two different data sources. We often see a lot of data sources published in Tableau that were really built to answer a single domain-specific questions. They were all analytical dead ends. So how about, instead of creating a property dataset and a separate crime dataset, we create a London 360 dataset? Now, when we go into Ask Data, I can see that this dataset contains all the crime instances, all property transactions, and the London geospatial dataset. So we can ask questions about crime. We can correlate this with questions about house prices. We can go deeper by drilling down to vehicle crimes only, for example. And by combining the data this way, we can quickly find areas with the lowest level of vehicle crime at the lowest house prices. But Ask Data isn't a dead end either. We can save our findings and continue to explore the dataset with visual tools. Now, visual exploration is just more appropriate for complex multidimensional analysis and to get to the next level of depth. So as an example, we can look at prices of houses and crime numbers, and we can quickly create a new calculation by just drag and drop, of course, to relate those prices against crimes per population. Now, this analytical flow from one question to another is only possible because we have a London 360 dataset instead of two data silos. So in summary, this data journey is a choice. It doesn't just happen by deploying technology. And as you saw here today, it's all about people. It's about making data a habit and eliminating those analytical dead ends. So remember, data will only have the desired impact on your business when you bring everyone along with you. So thank you for your time today.